Coming up, is good used farm equipment still available? Auctions, have they all moved online? Also, old grain trucks known to Dave and I, and my Rural Reflections online column. We'll get started with a little chit-chat, though, here in just a few minutes. This is the Rural Reflections Podcast. Welcome to another Rural Reflections podcast with Dave Nelson in Carrington, North Dakota, and Grant Nelson, me here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio. And good morning, Dave. How are you doing today?
Morning, Grant. I'm doing all right, I guess. Okay. Nice day.
I think we're both feeling that fall kickback nostalgia vibe because we're both kind of tired and kind of relaxed, maybe not as hard chargers as we might have been on a normal morning during the summer?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. You know, it's you can just tell we're losing daylight so fast now. You know, instead of being tired at 10 o'clock, you're tired at 8 o'clock or 8:30. You know.
Yeah.
And it's nice to wake up and see the sun coming up. It's been so nice, the sunrises and sunsets. So it's just a kind of a nice kickback day.
It's the kind of part of the year where if you're a person who goes to bed fairly early and you have photovoltaic lights, you actually get to see them come on. So it's kind of a treat in that way. Now, I was talking to Dave a little bit before we got on the air here, and I've been finally just about done with a deck I've been building on the front of our house for a little bit of time. I enjoy it for the most part, so I take my time, and also, about an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, I'm kind of bored with it anyway. But yesterday, I put on solar lights on the outside perimeter of it with photovoltaic switches on, so it just comes on at night. And I was really impressed. The solar lights have gotten a lot better than they used to. I remember back in the old days, Dave, you'd probably get, a couple hours out of them, and that was it. But with LED lighting, I think they're quite a bit better.
Yeah, they must be, because we have a few of them here, too, that if you have good sunshine during the day, they stay on all night.
Well, Lisa had some little bullet lights that were solar lights last year, and we had put them out kind of around the perimeter of the deck. And I remember seeing a little glow coming through a snowdrift one day, and I thought to myself, dang, now that's a good light.
Yeah, that's the little light that could.
Let's talk a little bit about farm equipment, Dave. We recently spoke with Paula Lund from the Farm Service Agency up in Roseau, and I wanted you to listen to a little bit of her interview and just to see if we could comment a little bit about the availability of farm equipment.
There is money available. The problem I'm hearing out there is the equipment's not available. It is tough to find some good used equipment these days, and especially with the online auctions, the way they've been going, things have been selling very strong in the online auction world.
Okay, so she said that finding good equipment, not always the easiest thing. What have you seen out there, Dave, at your equipment place?
Well, probably due to a lack of a lot of new sales to people that have a 2 or 3 year old trade-in. I'm sure the good equipment is going down pretty fast. I know we're short on tractors. We could use quad tracks and 4-wheel drives, and 2 years ago we kind of had an abundance of them, but we're out of them. So yeah, I'm sure it's going to be hard to find those real good low-hour trades. And we have some very nice medium-houred, 2,000-hour machines and stuff like that they're good machines too, but I know what they're probably talking about. People want to get something that's a couple years old and under 1,000 hours, and it's hard to find them because they've been picked over pretty well now.
Yeah, they want that equipment where the new look still is there, but the new price isn't there. They've kind of taken that off the lot portion is kind of lopped off the top. That seems like what everybody's sort of looking for.
Yes, yeah.
I don't suppose anybody's looking for a Farmall M with a loader on it, are they?
Oh, somebody somewhere is.
How about, do you guys notice anything as far as we've been talking about auctioneers too sometimes here during the week? It seems like a lot more of that auction action has gone online. I mean, there's still some auctions that happen, but I don't know if it's an effect of the COVID-19 pandemic or if it's an effect of just how we are as a culture, but it does seem like more of the auctions are going online.
Oh, I think so. And of course, a lot of the ones that were usually the type of auction where you go there to bid, those went to online only also, So, yeah, I believe it's COVID related, and now that they're doing it, there's probably a lot less hassle for the auctioneer, probably even less hassle for the seller, So I know there's a lot of that stuff going on, man. They come around and ask us if we want to put anything on their auction sale pretty much every month, So, yeah, there's a lot of online auctioning going on.
And I think, I did auctioning myself back in the 90s, and people just think that auction is all about bidding and all that sort of thing or calling it, but it's a lot of setup and a lot of work beforehand and power washing and lining everything up and clerking and all that sort of thing. And if you can get that automated and online, I mean, that makes life a lot easier. It makes being an auctioneer quite a bit more fun, although you never get to call the bid, and that's kind of unfortunate, I suppose. But that anytime,
I'm sure it is for them.
Anytime you make progress,
it kind of makes them not necessary any longer. But it's a good fill-in for the time right now that we're in. But I think you'll see them go back to live auctions again.
Sounds good. Dave, let's take a break. Let's do the Rural Reflections online column here, and we'll come back with more. We're going to talk about old farm trucks in the second half of the show on the Rural Reflections podcast. I'm Grant Nelson. This is Rural Reflections. My summer is shorter than most, certainly shorter than the calendar summer. The hottest days, the most humid afternoons, I leave those for someone else. My summer happens in little single-serving portions that I save like ketchup and mustard packets until I have enough for a meal. I assemble my summer from various parts until I can look back and say, this is my summer. I don't spend summer hiding indoors. I mean, if you live in northern Minnesota and don't use summer to your advantage, you will spend the winter at a disadvantage. I take note of weaknesses created by winter and repair or re-engineer them. That said, I do try to plan my work so that it can end every afternoon about 3:30. Cattle this year have been a good experience without hoof trouble or sickness. The pasture is typically productive, but this year it's been outstanding. Regrowth within the first week of cattle removal has never been better, which is something that makes me feel like we always have enough for the next go-round. My trips to see the cattle have been full of little chunks of summer that fit nicely together. Birds pop out of the grass frequently as barn swallows constantly dart in and out as they eat the mosquitoes. There's something about the cows, the birds, the grass, and me peacefully occupying space that just feels good. I never watched the sky very often until this year. I started a new career after I retired and discovered star watcher Bob Hultgren. Early mornings at work, Bob walks out of the building a few times. I didn't know what he was doing at first, but found out that he was gathering his own summer memories, pre-dawn, from a sky full of planets and stars. Now, I too enjoy Venus shining brightly or Mars glowing in the distance. It's become something other than coffee to enjoy on my way to work. Elon Musk occasionally launches large groups of low Earth orbit satellites that are fun to watch too, although they also appear a little like an invasion from outer space. The first full mile of the county road from our farm is full of butterflies. This means you got to drive about 10 miles an hour so as not to hit the fountains of monarchs that spray from the grassy shoulder of the road. It adds time to my trip outside of our COVID bubble. However, it's time well spent. The Monarch colors and seemingly random movement are like a medium-toned fireworks show without the bang. Finally, my summer of 2020 will include snippets of golf cart rides with Lisa. The cart is quiet so we can talk and discuss our plans for the future or just talk about our day. Quietly driving past the rabbits who hunker down in the grass or watch the cats play without the effect of our influence is really a window into the world around us. It is all quite nice, and when assembled piece by piece, make up my summer. I'm Grant Nelson. This is Rural Reflections. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the online column today. Dave, as our feature for the second part of the show, let's talk about old farm trucks. Now, we certainly have a lot of time in driving old farm trucks. I was thinking about one that I really enjoyed myself was a Chevy 6500 that I had, probably in 1950s or so. Bought it for $600, and I bet I hauled $3,000 worth of Class 5 fill with it back somewhere in the 1990s. And I finally made it into a trailer that I could pull behind a pickup, and most of the time just pulled it behind a tractor. And I think when I sold it for $400. I sold the trailer for $400. So I really got my use out of that old bugger. Once you got it started, you were pretty good, but it was always a little bit of a challenge to get it going. But I know there's a lot of other old trucks in, our common history.
Yeah, a lot of the old trucks have a kind of a common theme. The brakes never work on them, and they all have their little quirks that it takes to get them going and keep them going and so on. But yeah, we used to have, I think the first real truck we had on the farm was a 1937 Chevy one-ton truck. And that's the one that Debbie and I used to drive out in the field, and we could only go in super low. And I couldn't reach the pedals, so I steered it on my knees, and Debbie ran the gas pedal. And then when we got near the combine, I just turned the key shut off so Dad could go out and unload.
Man, I can just picture that when you were talking about it. I mean, I can't actually picture the type of truck it was, but I can picture you pulling up next to, and that must have been that old International combine. Is that the one that?
No, it was an old case, A6 case combine.
It was the one that used to sit out in the woods then.
Yes, the one that I wrecked.
When I was working on the farm, of course, I think we had an F600 Ford truck. It was a black one with a white box, actually pretty nice looking. And I believe that had a 289 or 283 Ford engine in there. And
yeah, those were, I can't remember what those were. If those were, I think that was a 292.
Okay.
I think is what it was. They had the ones that had the exhaust pipes on top of the motor.
Yep.
When you open the hood.
And that
was a good truck.
That was a good truck. That 280 or that 292, is that like an industrial version of the 289 then?
No, it was a different style of motor entirely. There was a 292 and a 292, 312, 352 or something version of that motor. I'm sure it had a lot of common things, but it was an older version of the wider wedge engine. The 289 was a real narrow engine. It was called a narrow wedge, where these were kind of a wider version.
Now, you were telling me a little bit before that there was a one-ton truck that Dad had bought without a box, and later equipped it for hauling grain, that sort of thing. But he had used it originally for fencing. Yeah,
I think that was an old Ford truck too, and I'm guessing it was maybe 48 or 9 or something like that. It was one of those that the speedometer was marked where you could shift it at, because it was a non-synchronized transmission, and you couldn't shift it unless you shifted it at those speeds, And it was a very nice. It was in good shape. The truck was in real good shape. It didn't have a box on it. And while Dad was looking for a box for it, he tied some pails and red posts laying across the frame of it, and a bunch of fencing supplies, and used it for fencing. Mm-hmm. And eventually got a box for it, but I don't think it ever had a hoist on it. And so that one kind of went down the road, and I think that was replaced by that black and white 56 Ford, I think it was, or whatever that was.
Yeah, I remember that one. And then I remember going to the Viking elevator with trucks that didn't have a hoist on them, and there was a hoist in the floor of the elevator, so you'd park your pickup or your truck with the front axle on top of the hoist, and then they'd lift it up into the air and just dump all that grain right out the back.
I know. That was pretty crazy. That was great at the elevator. It just didn't work worth a darn at home.
Yeah, trying to put handyman jacks or something on the front and lift it up. Forget it, that didn't work. We just ended up using a lot of shoveling back then, as I recall.
A lot of shoveling, yeah.
You know, and then I remember going on when I started working for Sugar Beet people. I remember the first time I ever drove a truck that didn't have tape on the seat. I thought, oh my word, these people must be rich.
Yeah, it was different. You know, when the truck was just your grain truck and you used it for maybe a month, a year, and there wasn't all that much grain storage on the farm at the time, they sure didn't get the best of treatment. You know, they probably opened the doors and scared the mice out of the inside of them every now and then, but otherwise they were kind of an afterthought. But boy, the grain truck nowadays is vital on the farm.
Yeah, a lot of people have gone to semis so that they can constantly swap out trailers, and it is essential because you got to control how much commodities you have on the farm. Between bidding and having storage and having transport for all that stuff, that's a big part of farming.
Well, yes, and it used to be, you know, there was about 3 people that hauled grain, and of course everybody went to Duluth. And so your markets were somewhat improved then by having that available. But as time went on, I mean, we have a lot of guys that haul their particular grains 100 miles or more just to get it marketed because they're hauling to an ethanol plant or they're hauling, you know, kind of a specialty crop that has to go to a bush plant or, you know, something like that. So, yeah, that truck has become very important. And if you watch somebody combining corn, you'll notice that one combine sometimes needs 2 grain carts and about 3 semis to keep the crop going away from it in the field, you know.
Absolutely. When I see an army of semis sitting in the field with trailers behind them, like, okay, there's corn going on somewhere nearby because they go through a lot of bushels, that's for sure. Dave, you got anything else for us this week?
No, I guess not.
All right. Well, I hope you have a very enjoyable rest of your Labor Day weekend. Are you working Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I am too. Well, we can commiserate together that way, and we'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right. See you, Grant.
See you later. There he is, my brother Dave, on our Rural Reflections podcast. Dave's in Carrington, North Dakota. I'm here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio.